meeting of the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency Board to order. Welcome everybody that's here today. Let the minutes note that 3 members of the board are present and Director Cravoza will arrive shortly, I'm assured. Any changes to the agenda that?
Yes. I would like to, Chair Marble, ask that under emergency provision that we place an item on the agenda concerning public relations and in regards to potential op-eds by members of this body.
And I'll second that, but my only question is what percentage of the board needs to weigh in to make that
You'll need
happen?
a 3/4 vote, which would be the
Which we would have, okay.
unanimous here.
I'll second that motion.
And the reason Marty,
Yep.
Some explanation.
Thank
yes,
you.
there has been 2 competing op-eds that have been worked upon, and we have not been able to discuss either one of them with each other for potential Brown Act violations. Chair Marble has been working one, and Vice Chair Souza and Member Cravoza have been working on another one. One would be for a regional nature, and the other was more of a local nature. And we have not been able to talk, and we would like to be able to talk and coordinate those efforts. And we need to do that in an open public session.
Fine.
And just to clarify, those op-ed pieces have come to light in the since this agenda packet was posted.
Exactly.
No problem.
All right, any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, and we'll now, this is an opportunity for the public to comment on any items that do not appear on your agenda. Do we have any member of the public that wishes to so comment? Seeing none, we'll adjourn into closed session.
gets excited.
And it's Teflon. Teflon coated fabric, whatever that means. But you know what? You can't dry type it. And it has to have special washing instructions and be ironed.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
Really? So where are the stragglers still talking?
Straggling. Half of them are in the hallway, half of them are in determining what their statement is going to be. And
Oh, got it. And then Paul just arrived.
yeah, well, we drug him into a briefing with me, and Mark Devon, and Bob,
Oh, okay.
and Paul Ann, so I probably should be back there too. Oh well. Win a few, lose 14, it's the minor league.
What did I do with it?
See the little green light.
Well, we appreciate everybody's patience, and sorry to have you stay around without any food, or hopefully you found some water to drink. And the board met in closed session. I'll comment just very briefly on item B of that closed session, which concerned our water rights application. We had a very brief discussion about a few issues pertaining to item B, and gave our attorney for that water rights application direction in that regard. Regarding item A, the board met in closed session concerning proposed agreements relating to the purchase and acquisition of water rights and real property interests and a joint river intake diversion facility. We are continuing those negotiations in good faith, with due diligence, and with the best interests of our ratepayers at heart. This board is committed to transparency in the process. The following agreements are in negotiation. Number one, a water agreement with Conaway Preservation Group and the Tri-City Water and Farm, the principal purpose for which is to acquire water rights from the Conaway Preservation Group for use in summer and other times when the agency will be restricted from diverting water under its expected and less senior water right permit. Number two, a joint intake agreement with Reclamation District 2035, the principal purpose for which would be to share an intake site and jointly design, construct, and operate and maintain a screened water intake facility on the Sacramento River. Number three, a real property agreement with RD 2035, the Conaway Preservation Group, and Tri-City Water and Farm, the principal purpose for which is to acquire an intake site and pipeline and other easements for the project. Number four, an installment purchase agreements with the cities of Davis and Woodland, the principal purpose for which is to back up and secure the agency's water right purchase agreement through city commitments to fix and collect water rates that would cover the purchase obligation. The board will not consider these agreements until they are in final written form and until the public has had a chance for review and comment. We have directed our negotiators to prepare these agreements no later than Tuesday, December 14th for this board's consideration at a special meeting later that week. If the agreements cannot be in final written form by early next week, so that the public has an opportunity to review and provide input, the board will not be able to reconsider the agreements until January. Now we'll move on to item 3. Pardon me. I guess that's item 4. Is that correct, Mr. Shanahan?
Yes, sir.
We have a consent agenda before us. Any member of the board wish to?
I have a question.
Yes.
I note that you're going to be going to cap from this agency. Are any of the other members going to cap on behalf of the cities?
I do not know the answer to that question.
That's why I was asking the other board members.
Yeah, it has not come up at the City of Davis yet.
Okay, thank you.
And we have not in the past, so I'm not sure how we'll handle that issue.
Okay.
I will comment that the first team meeting of the Water Resources team is now scheduled for December 16th. And I think the other comment was we're asking staff and have asked staff to prepare appropriate documents that can accompany that legislative pursuit. We have a motion then for the consent agenda.
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, water supply project update.
It's been a long evening so far. I'm going to make this pretty quick. The key activities and accomplishments in the lime, well, it comes up lime green here. Could you hit the lights, please, Lynn? Indicate those activities which we've spent considerable time discussing, and a considerable effort has been made over the past month in addressing the various agreements that are being pursued at the present time. And resolution of those agreements would allow us to make considerable progress on the various various activities shown in the lime green color. I can answer any questions with regard to that. I really don't want to go into any of those details with regard to any of those issues, but they all pertain to advancing the project considerably with regard to our water rights, the summer water transfers, intake site selection, and considerable advancement would take place, and we're looking forward to resolution of some of these discussions that we've had to achieve huge milestones in advancing the project. I did want to indicate that we are implementing the DBO process that was approved at our last board meeting, regular board meeting, where you gave direction to staff to implement the project facilities on a design, build, operate basis. We've hit the ground running on that. We anticipate putting out a request for qualifications at the end of February or early March. Funding and financing was touched upon very briefly. We are meeting with the Water Resources Committee to prepare for cap to cap, and to ensure that our project and the facilities associated with our project are given due consideration by elected officials. We're continuing our outreach with regard to that, and one key element is we're still providing support for other elements that have been presented in the Yolo County Water Resources Association, IRWMP, such as the work being done by Yolo County Flood Control and Water Conservation District with regard to conjunctive use. That application will be made January 7th, I believe, and this is part of an implementation grant application associated with Prop 84. And that in itself would benefit us in providing supplemental water in the summer as well. So we're really in support of that activity for funding. And an agenda item that we had with regard to an agreement with UC Davis is before you, and we'll probably be pulling that from the agenda. And Dick Shanahan will give you an update on where we stand with regard to that negotiation. And lastly, public consent is always important, and I think it's been important throughout the whole year. And I'd like to have Kim Floyd briefly recap what has been done for the past year and what we're planning for the coming year.
Good evening, Chair Marble, members of the board. I think it was, how do I advance to the next slide?
In fact, we have a schedule.
Oh, I messed that up.
Yeah.
All right.
There's
Nope.
the schedule. The next one is.
Okay. It was just about a year ago that I stood before you, with the exception of Member Cravosa, about the identity for the agency, and that's really where we started the ball rolling. Since that time, we've made great strides in the realm of public outreach. We conducted our public opinion research early on, which included stakeholder interviews and focus groups in the city of Woodland to complement those that had previously been done in Davis. We found great alignment there and opportunities to reach out to our community to talk about the project and make sure that there are avenues for two-way communication as we move forward. Through that public opinion research, we were able to develop a strategic communications plan that covered many activities and strategies, again, for grassroots type public outreach. We've conducted media relations throughout the year, and we've put together, as I was developing the list, quite a few outreach materials. Most importantly, our website. It's been a great tool, and we're seeing an increased interest in people signing up to be a part of our e-news distribution list, for example. The Community Update 2010, I think I've heard from several of you that has proven to be a very informative document and helpful as you communicate the benefits of the project. We launched our inaugural e-news, and we're looking forward to doing that on a quarterly basis. We do have a project brochure that was delivered on my doorstep after I left the office this afternoon, so I'll look forward to sharing that. We also have some online materials that we can easily adapt as we move forward. We've also done some stakeholder outreach with regard to legislative briefings. We've conducted 3. We have several more to go, both on the national and statewide level. And then we have the Speakers Bureau. We've conducted 13 presentations in the last few months, and we're only gaining momentum with that. So I would assume that within a few months from now, we'll be hitting some of the same people 2 and 3 times. So we'll catch our breath and then move forward again. In terms of where we're going in 2011, we're going to continue what we're doing, only better. And we are going to coordinate with the cities on any Prop 218 outreach that is needed in support of the project. We'll hope to get some public workshops where we can really have some back and forth great dialogue about what we're doing. And then for outreach materials, we'd like to get something in the utility bills as it does relate to what's happening with water rates. And then new media. We're finally ready, I think, to launch into social media, but also vidcasts and podcasts. So that's where we are. Any questions?
That looks good.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Just, two things to say. It's not a question, but one is, it may sound a little bit odd, but in the realm of public outreach, let's not forget actually our own councils. And I'm actually realizing, if we come to the Davis City Council and do a half an hour, presentation or something where we bring in water rights attorney and maybe certainly Eric as well, that gets broadcast in Davis, that gets repeated over and over. And, obviously Stephen and I can brief our council, but I think let's not forget the councils. We were created in 2009 and, maybe once a year at least coming in, we'll probably even lighten the load on, the members here to keep their colleagues briefed. And I think a lot of our colleagues have more detailed questions that sometimes we can't always, answer and don't have the time to do. And the Davis Council, I guess to move in this direction a little bit, we're going to want to make sure that the minutes of the CWA meetings are shared for informational purposes with our council. And Woodland might like to do that as well, just to make sure that our colleagues understand and have an opportunity at least to look in at the level of activity that's going on here, which is obviously quite impressive.
Yes.
I would concur with that, in particular with the Davis Council. We have two new members, but Joe's immersed himself so much that he doesn't need to be brought up to speed anymore. He's already at 2 speed. But we will have another vacancy on our council come January 4th, and soon after that, within a 60-day period, there will be a new member more than likely on the Davis City Council, and that person, whoever that person is, will need to be brought up to speed. So I concur that it would be good to brief the councils on a regular basis too.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The City Woodland City Council will also be adding a new person, I think by February 15th is our cutoff
Our
date.
deadline.
Yeah, we've also had a resignation.
At risk of getting smacked once I walk back on that side of the gate, would it be worthwhile to have a standing agenda item maybe once a quarter where we could just plan on, did I hear gasps behind me? Where we could plan on, so that we have a set period where we will be coming to the councils and providing a brief update. It's just a thought.
Yeah, well, certainly from my vantage point in the initial stage, once we're a little more into the project, that may not be needed, but all the public outreach that we can do, I think, is helpful. And we had Eric come and do that for our council here recently. I'm not sure if Davis did, but I think it's a beneficial thing to do.
City of Woodland broadcasts via cable to the community government channel, so we have that ability through these cameras to be able to speak to the community about this on a regular basis, and I think it's always a good thing to do that. Yeah, I mean, we can take that and make it podcast or...
We are posting the videos on our website now. We have one we're having a little bit of trouble formatting, but other than that, they're all there.
Yeah, I just think that, in Davis, the expectation is if you want to understand where the city council is going, you watch those things. They replay 3-4 times a week. They're archived and such. So I almost just view it as an extremely efficient way to reach a lot of the groups in the community and to put the information where the community kind of thinks it will be. So.
And Nielsen ratings tell us in the city of Davis our council meeting is higher than Dancing with the Stars.
Well, that's reassuring.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not.
I have one more thing to add with regard. I always like to close, or at least incorporate the schedule somewhere in my presentation. But before I do that, I also want to add that we've made overtures to the Yolo County Board of Supervisors to present to them as well at whenever they desire that we make that presentation. And so we're waiting for them to see when the right time would be. But I'd like to just go back one last thing to the schedule. It's all important to us, and I just want to assure you that despite some of these delays that we may have been encountering in reaching some agreements, that we're still on schedule. And you can look at the schedule that many of these activities that we're engaged in, we hope to accomplish by the second quarter of next calendar year. So we still are on schedule, and if we ever slip on any of them, I'm certainly going to let you know, but our goal is to stay right on schedule.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest you put a date there on the bottom or on the top as of when this schedule first came
Okay.
out, so that we know that this has not
Well,
changed since that date.
This came out as soon as I started, so
So put,
in July, so I believe it was July, August. So. Okay, good. I just wanted to finish on that.
first thing I'll want to know every time I see that up there is, has that changed from the last time?
Exactly, and I will let you know if it does, but it has not. Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Board have any other questions of Eric? Very good. Item 6, Richard, do you want to?
Brief report on item number 6. This agreement is not ready to present to the board this evening for its consideration. However, just a status report. As directed by the board a couple months ago, agency staff have been in negotiations with university staff on what are actually 2 contracts. The way this is structured is the first contract is a short contract in the nature of an option agreement. It gives the university an option to participate in the project at some time between now and, as currently structured, the project startup, which is expected in 2016. And if the university chooses to participate, it would participate on the terms of a water supply contract, which is contract number 2. And what we'll be asking the agency board to do is basically approve in advance that this is a water supply contract we would be willing to agree upon. It tracks closely the obligations of the cities under the Joint Powers Agreement, and we're hopeful to bring that agreement to the agency board for consideration, probably at your special meeting next week.
Question?
Yes.
If for some reason the university elects not to participate, one of the water right applications is in their name, does that make any difference to us?
Well, part of the contract would provide that upon executing the contracts, the university thereafter would assign its interests in that application to the water agency, and if it thereafter chose not to participate, that prior assignment would be unaffected.
Okay.
If the project, then what the agreements further provide, though, is if the agency chooses, for whatever reason, to abandon the project, then we're structuring sort of a reversion back of the permit or application interest back to the university if for some reason the project's abandoned.
All right. Item 7, Technical Advisory Committee comments.
We don't have anything to offer. We're open for any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? All right. I'm going to insert here the item that we added to the agenda at the beginning regarding our public relations effort, and engage the board in discussion of that. Vice Chair Souza, do you want to begin that?
Thank you, Chair Marble. We, Board Member Corboza and myself have been working diligently on a op-ed piece that we have slated to run on Sunday in Davis Enterprise, and that particular op-ed is one, is it off? And that op-ed was off. That op-ed is a discussion on both water and wastewater for our citizens in the city of Davis. It has nothing in it that speaks to the closed session items that we were discussing earlier, but I also know that it has been brought to our attention that you and the mayors of the cities of Davis and Woodland had been working on an op-ed that would be speaking to those potential agreement points, and we did not want to talk about it, and so now here we are, so that if there were any concerns between how we get those out, where we send them, when they go out, I would like to hear those, and I would imagine Joe likewise would like to hear those concerns so that we can now fully discuss them.
Yeah, great. Anything to add to that, Director Corvoza?
off automatically. No.
Okay. Well, I'll just comment that Mayor Pimentel and Mayor Saylor and I have been working on an op-ed that we hope to be able to submit to the local newspapers once we're ready to announce publicly the terms of a written agreement between the two cities. So we feel it's still premature for us to submit that op-ed, but we're anxiously awaiting the opportunity to do so. And that op-ed piece, as I currently contemplate it, will contain the benefits to Woodland and Davis of this project and of the deal points of this project. Will also contain something regarding its costs. And Kim, is there anything else that you feel would be appropriate for us to discuss in terms of our public relations outreach in opinion pieces?
If I might, I think having collaborated a bit on both pieces, I think that the timing is, of course, up to the board, although because the agreement points are not in writing yet, or we've had the opportunity to have those vetted in public, I think they're actually complementary pieces, and don't think anything would be lost by having one go Sunday, and then the others with more specific points and a more regional outlook going when the agreements are ready.
Good.
Great.
Does that sound okay to
Sounds great.
everybody?
Writing by committee is always fun, right?
Since we're on public relations and added that item, I also like to let the board know that next Thursday I'll be doing a presentation in the morning to the Sunrise Rotary Club here in Woodland, and hopefully we'll be able to include in that presentation something about our contract. That'll depend on where we're at, I think, next week, but certainly it will be an educational forum in regards to the need for this water project. And I have requested opportunities to do similar presentations to the other Rotary clubs, and want the public to know that I'm available to do a presentation to any group that would like to have such a presentation. And I think my fellow board members would be equally willing to do so in their own community groups.
Yeah, I was thinking you could do Davis, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll trade cities.
Yeah, that's right.
Take it to the schools, too.
There
That's
you
right.
go. All right.
Very good.
Then we'll move on to item 8, board member comments and reports. Director Doty?
Just a brief comment, when you're talking about drafting some backup material to go on the cap-to-cap, I'm suspecting the atmosphere this year is going to be a little bit different than it was last year, and you may want to not only understand that you're going to be working with members, but you're probably going to have to work with agencies more than members. So you
Yeah.
want to focus your...
Good comments, and if I could make a suggestion, I've been in contact with staff on this issue several times, and I just suggest that if you can pass on whatever excellent suggestions you have onto staff, as we try to craft something that will be good for this project in terms of the federal nexus that's involved, that would be great.
Well, certainly, we're going to look for support from the members, but I'm not sure, how do we put this? I'm not sure what kind of effect that's going to actually have, and it may wind up being more within the agencies and within the executive branch, where we actually can capture some support.
Good point. Thank you. Vice Chair Souza?
No comments, thank you.
Director Cravoza?
None, but Director Doty's point, I've heard in a couple other contexts, and I think it's spot on, so thank you for bringing that up.
Well, this has happened before, and I've been on a couple of trips where the members weren't particularly receptive, but the agencies were.
Right.
I think staff has noted that comment. Good. Let me just report on a couple things from the Aqua meeting that I attended, that this board engaged me to attend along with the Water Resource Association. Just a couple of things from that meeting, and I've made some fairly copious notes that I'll forward to staff, and they can be distributed as staff feels appropriate. There was one very lengthy session I was involved in that regarded water rate setting in an environment of decreasing water usage. And that is an issue in this world, especially in this economy, and given the current state of affairs with water conservation. And some very, I thought some very good programs that were just recently implemented in two cities, two communities. One that had 10,000 water hookups had implemented a fairly advanced rate structure that included the size of the family and included the size of the lot in the metered rate structure in order to have a minimum, the lowest tier rating for the water usage being calculated based on those variables, which was of interest. And the other city utilizing a fairly new tiered rate structure as well. So I'll forward those notes. I think staff might find them interesting. The other session that I spent a lot of time in and asking questions of some of the experts that were there related to the flow criteria standards, which have been issued, as we all know, by the State Water Resources Control Board, which, if followed, there would be no water for many uses, including possibly the Woodland Davis surface water project. These flow criteria are onerous. The individuals that were in the forum indicated, all but one of those individuals indicated that the Delta Stewardship Council was not under mandatory requirements to implement those flow criteria, that they were informational, kind of a best world approach for the environment. But they're still of great concern, and I'll just let the board know that the Water Resource Association plans on having David Guy, who is the president of NACWA, to the Water Resources Association meeting in January to discuss a Northern California approach to some of these issues, including the flow criteria issues. So you would all certainly be invited to that meeting.
Chair Marble?
Yes.
Are those materials that you had the privilege of seeing, particularly the rate setting structure, are they available on the Aqua website?
They indicated they would be. The last I checked, they were not.
Okay.
But they said the presentations would be on the Aqua website.
Great, thank you.
And the last thing I'd like to report on is this board gave me a charge at the last meeting to talk with members of the Board of Supervisors regarding the possibility of including a non-voting member to this board, and I have initiated those conversations and have had a positive response. So I anticipate that will be an item for our next regular board meeting to consider acting on. That's all that I have to report. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.